Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Wade Watches. I'm Wade, and today I'm going to be reviewing Here, which I saw yesterday, directed by Robert Zemeckis and starring Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. So it's reuniting everybody from who was involved in the classic Forrest Gump, a movie that it's just for me, it's just a feel good and like one of those movies that's just easily rewatchable and enjoyable. So I really do enjoy Forrest Gump. However, I wouldn't say it's my favorite Zemeckis movie. That would definitely be either Contact or Flight. So I like or Castaway. Let's throw that into the mix. So I like it when he, I guess like kind of like the more serious, like more meditative, deep thinking stuff that he's done. But nonetheless, I still think Forrest Gump is a great movie, and because I enjoy Forrest Gump, I feel like that's probably the reason why I still got a kick out of Here as well, because they're very similar yet very different as well. But this is definitely I really do feel like it's that textbook feel good, schmaltzy, optimistic Zemeckis that the majority of people I know out there have come to associate with his name, his overall name. Overall, when most people think of Robert Zemeckis, you think Back to the Future, you think Forrest Gump, you think Castaway, you think Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like more of the the lighthearted side of him. Though again, he has done more serious stuff like Flight as well. And I guess Castaway's a bit of both. That movie has some really lighthearted moments, but it also has some really dark and depressing moments as well. So he balances out. Um, and incidentally, that's pretty much what he does here. So he brings the best of both worlds to here, and add to the fact that this is a film that has going for it. The wow factor, the thing that it's going to become known for is being that one single still shot of the same bit of land that eventually becomes a house, and then you see various people who lived in this same house. It's enjoyable, and saying it in the best of ways, this definitely feels like something that I'd see at Disney World. And again, I don't mean that as an insult or sarcastically. I mean that in the best way. Like, it just kind of felt like a ride at points, and there's nothing wrong with that. And again, that's something else that Zemeckis is known for. This is the guy who bought us all of those mocap movies from the mid 2000s, the Polar Express, of course, which is we'll get to that later, but because it's time that I review that one for this holiday season. But it's a Christmas staple for a lot of people. Then you have the next one he did was Beowulf, which is the most underrated and the best of those mocap films, in my opinion. I love the crap out of that movie. And then you have Jim Carrey's A Christmas Carol, which is decent enough. Jim Carrey's a good Scrooge, but boy, did they lay on the darkness and like just like the sinister side of that story for whatever reason. And that was a Disney movie. I don't know what that was about, but I still watch it every year. So yeah, if you don't mind, I feel like if you're a fan of Forrest Gump and if you have a soft spot for those mocap movies, and Robert Zemeckis trying to kind of follow in James Cameron's footsteps, and really turn turn cinema into like almost like an interactive like ride experience, I think you'll enjoy Here, as I did. However, it's not perfect. Outside of two very great performances by Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, they are well individually. They work well off of each other. They're really good overall. And the movie, this is a non-linear movie that jumps back and forth between times. So you see a lot of them when they're children, a lot of them when they're young adults and teenagers. Then you see them when they get really old, and you also see a bunch of other people. But they definitely, it's their movie more or less, because it's more or less their story, and I will say they're pretty much the best part of it. And outside of that, there's some good stuff too, because there are some other characters that again, it shows all sorts of different people who've lived in the same house or have inhabited this patch of land throughout time, jumping back and forth. Like, we even see dinosaurs and prehistoric insects and all that. So it's that sort of movie. But and Native Americans as well, and Benjamin Franklin for I yeah, I guess Robert Zemeckis is a Ben Franklin fan, but like, we see all these characters, but I really feel like when it wasn't focusing on Hanks and Wright's relationship, it felt like it was getting too big for its britches. Like it felt like it was trying to do too much, like to its detriment. Like it got too big for its own good, to the point where it really did feel like something that maybe we could you could see at like Epcot, like that belonged at Epcot at Disney, where like if you want to do all of this and show all of this stuff, you have to find a way to make room for it. And this movie is only 1 hour and 44 minutes long, and despite that, there does come a point where it does drag and feel kind of bloated, because again, you're trying to do way too much with this. I don't need to see that Benjamin Franklin once, lived in this house. You're like, oh, that's a crazy coincidence. Ben Franklin lived here. I don't necessarily need to see these Native American characters. Like, I love Native American culture and heritage, and I love it when it's represented. But if you're not going to do anything with them, if you're only going to cut back to them like 3 times, they don't belong in the movie. And the cry of shame, the one that really kind of irritates me, because there's a great scene with them. If you're not gonna really develop the African American family that you show here, why have them at all? And again, I'm disappointed, a little bit disappointed with that, because there's this one scene. There's one scene with when it shows like the African American family who lived in the house, during this era, during the 2020s, and that's definitely given away at one point in the film, where like there's a scene where it's just like real and it hits close to home, and then that's it. You never see that black family again. They're in like one more snippet, boom, goes away. And it's like, why do you even have them in there? Why are you showing this? Like, I get what you're trying to do. You're jumping back and forth in time. You're showing like, oh, look at all the stuff that's happened on this one patch of land. Doesn't that make you think about all the stuff that happened, around your house in the area that you lived before you lived there? Does that make you think about the fact that dinosaurs once inhabited the area that you live in? Like, yeah, I guess, but this movie would have worked much better if it had simply followed Tom Hanks and family, because their stories were interesting enough where you could have just, you know, jumped back and forth in time with their story. Those characters, Tom Hanks's family, Tom Hanks's parents, played by Paul Bettany and Kelly Riley, and that could have been the entire movie. If you're not gonna like hash out the Native Americans that you show for a brief snippet, or you're not gonna do much with that black family except for one fantastic scene with them, don't have them in there. If you're not going to do much with the I think like I want to say, yeah, like the 1940s inventor and his girlfriend, where they're just kind of there to be these colorful characters. Like, hey, we're in the 1940s and I'm an inventor. Like, don't have them in there. So at a point, it got a bit too big for its britches. It did too much for its own good. But overall, I still had a good time watching here. And, like Forrest Gump manages to do every time I watch it, it got me here at a certain point. I was like, okay, that's cute. That's endearing. That's very sweet. And you ended it on a, wholesome note. So I'll give you credit where credit's due. But you did a bit too much here, Robert Zemeckis. I'm sorry. You took something that's interesting on paper. This is an adaptation, like Forrest Gump, of a book, in this case a graphic novel, and you got a little bit carried away with what you were trying to do here. If you had narrowed it down a little bit, and if you had just focused it on Tom Hanks and family, and maybe even showed like his relatives and ancestors, like this same family growing, that would have been more enjoyable. That would have been more focused. But by jumping around to literally all these different characters, some of which you only see like once or twice, and it's like, okay, cool, I don't really feel for them, and you don't really get me to like fully emotionally invest in this as much as you clearly want me to do. Like, judging by the way this wraps up, it clearly wanted you to be like, oh yeah, I feel this. I feel for all of you guys. But for me, not really, because we don't spend enough time with them, because this movie is just under 2 hours. If it had been around the same length as Forrest Gump, like 2.5 hours, then I would have been like, okay, we're in for this long ride. I'm getting to see all these guys, but no. So wrapping it up, I'm going to go ahead and give here. I'm gonna still go ahead and give it a 7.5 out of. No, you know what? Screw. What am I doing? I'm gonna give it an 8. I really did enjoy this. I'm not gonna. All of that aside, I still had a good time with it because it's the novelty of it. It's a still shot. You see all these people jump in time. They did a wonderful job with de-aging Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. made it really convincing. Not so much with Paul Bettany, like for for decades, unless I'm mistaken, unless I missed something. He looks the same age for like decades, and then finally, they age him up. That I'm sorry, I caught that. But all that aside, this was still a great watch. It definitely gets you in the feels like Forrest Gump does, like like he did before, like Tom Hanks and Robin Wright did in that movie. They do it here too. I was like, oh, you guys are cute together. You guys are so sweet. Oh, I want you both to succeed. And, again, the main thing that you're coming to see, the hallmark of this still shot of the same house, of the same patch of land, seeing it throughout time, is very engaging. It's very entertaining, and it's very innovative. And it does kind of prove that, mainstream Hollywood every now and then can churn out something a bit unique, a bit different, and something you can still enjoy. So, yeah, 8 out of 10 for here. Flaws aside, this was a very great watch. It definitely is something that you will probably see something like this, or have already probably seen something like this at Epcot. I've been to Disney World a couple of times, and yeah, it does remind me of a couple of things I've seen in Epcot. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for here. I enjoyed it. This has been another edition of Wade Watches, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.